Yeah, so if anyone's interested in it, again, I feel like it simplifies things for people who don't
Mhm,
want to spend a ton of time and energy trying to, again, manage all these different spending categories and be all in all these different
mhm,
places. We'll probably get to it in a little bit, but the book has a companion that goes with it, which is an app that I've taught myself how to code and built. And the app allows you to see the full picture and it walks you through things step by step. And so the Olympus Money Method's designed to be easier. It's designed to bring in not just the science of money, but again, the science of well-being. And even when you get into the app, you'll see there are little like money meditations to help get your mind in the right spot. There's recommendations on how to do things to build better relationships. There's opportunities to express gratitude in simple ways that are designed to be these exercises to really build up a financially healthy identity.
Hello, everyone. I'm Johnny.
And I am Theresa, and today we have with us Mr. JD Itri. Thank you for joining the show. And at this time, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. So, as you said, my name's JD, and a little background on me is I'm a CPA. I have a Master of Taxation degree. I started my career in public accounting and quickly moved into what I call tax technology, where I was building tools for accountants to prepare their taxes. And then I started building tax preparation software from scratch for a startup company that I joined. And then for about 3 years, I was one of the core product managers over TurboTax for Intuit. So that's a very little bit about what I was doing before I started this current venture, but a way to give you guys a little introduction.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And that was a great introduction. And when you say taxation, it's like all ears and all eyes. Okay, let's go.
All right. So I want to ask a question first before we dive in. How did you wind up going from like being in your regular like CPA area to technology? How did
Yeah,
that?
so the story behind that was I was working on something called a cost segregation study for a company called Brinker, which has like Maggiano's and Corner Bakery, if you've ever heard of some of those restaurants. So my job was, as the low person on the totem pole, was to photocopy for 12 hours a day all of the details behind all of the construction that had gone on for all of these different restaurants. So I was listening to the partner one day and he was saying, I don't think we're going to be able to build all of our Excel lead sheets that tie out everything. We don't have enough hours. Like we're really in trouble. So I heard that and I said, well, while I was in college, I taught myself how to do a little bit of coding in Excel to write these things called macros. And I think I can automate like everything you guys are doing manually. I think I can write a code to do it for you. And so they said, okay, well, we have no other options. And I was like, as long as you don't make me photocopy anything anymore, I am shifting over and I will do that as long as you want. So they said, okay, you're off the photocopy machine, start writing us some code. So I wrote the code and saved somewhere between 400 and 600 hours of work for them. And they said, okay, JD, like this seems to be a skill that scales and like we can let you do some things on that end that make you more valuable to us as an employee than just a regular tax preparer. So I did that for a couple of years in my first company and then found a job with another public accounting firm that was looking specifically for someone who had my specific skill set. And it happened to be in the city that I wanted to move to with a company where I already knew some people. And so that was just like I look back and feel very fortunate that that fell into place. And while I was there, again, I was building things in Excel, learning how to do something called product management, which I then shifted more into my career on. But yeah, that's kind of what took me in was being forced to photocopy 12 hours. You get very creative and clever when you have to be doing that kind of work.
Oh,
Well, you were a good guy to do that for 12 hours a day.
whew.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, so I know we see that you have a book, and the book kind of was in line with what they call Olympus Money Method. So could you
Yep.
kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, so the Olympus Money Method is my proprietary steps to gaining financial freedom in a world designed to make you poor. And so we go around our day-to-day lives, and there's all these factors weighing against us, whether it's companies who know how to use psychology against us to get us to spend on things we don't need, or financial advisors and other financial institutions that get us into products that we don't really need, but we don't
Mhm.
know, so we kind of do what we hear, or taxes, the IRS, and the confusion that comes from all
Mhm.
that. Plus, our own natural instincts and desires sometimes lead us astray. And so I've looked at like, what are all these things that are conspiring against us, working against us, and how can we overcome them in a way that's simple, concise, and doable for the average person who doesn't have a master's of accountancy degree and isn't a CPA and all these
Mhm.
things. So I went through these 3 steps that combine not only the things I had learned as a CPA that I call the science of money, but also introduce ideas from the science of well-being so that we're combining both the science of money and the science of well-being to produce financial well-being. If you can call it financial well-being or true financial freedom. I kind of use those terms interchangeably in the book, but it's really how do you get to that point in a world that's really trying to not let you get there?
And you know what? I think we need to bring this. Can you say the name of the book, please?
Sure. It's called the Olympus Money Method. And again, the tagline behind it is how to gain financial freedom in a world designed to make you poor.
Okay, and then I want to touch on something, yeah, because that's
Hmm.
that's a big deal. You said psychology,
Hmm.
and based on what I'm seeing, a lot has gone into psychology, and like the signs and the colors. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about the psychology that is being used against us?
Absolutely. So you look at things like one of the things that is part of our psychology is to spend up to our ability to spend. And so once you introduce things like credit cards, you actually like extend the ability to spend up into this credit that feels like it's something you have, but really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so one hypothesis as to why we do this that I talk about in the book is the fact that like if we look at our ancestors, they didn't have the ability to store value in the ways that we do today. And so those who would succeed most are the ones who consumed what they had, then like moved on to something else, consumed all that
Mm-hmm.
they got there, moved on to something else. And like that part of our DNA is actually was actually really good for our ancestors because it
Mm-hmm.
helped there wasn't a way to keep things like around for using it for later. Now, that's not the world we live in anymore, and we can actually do a lot if we take a portion of the value we're gaining today, put it aside in ways that can grow and let our money work for us. But we
Mm-hmm.
have this instinct that's part of our DNA, and it doesn't make us bad people to have that instinct. It was, again, good for our ancestors, but we need to know that it's there and then put in place some things in order to kind of work around it and use that instinct to our advantage. So that's one. I go through 5 different things in the book of like these psychological, emotional things that influence us. But that's the first one, and I think a good one to touch on the topic.
Okay, good.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I noticed also too, and this was a quote directly out of the book that I want you to kind of discuss. But it says people who use the Olympus money method don't manage their money. They don't have restricted budgets or set unrealistic goals. So when I see don't manage their money, I said, well, let's talk about that because that's that to me that's kind of like whoa.
Yeah, what are we doing? Like that, I thought that's the whole point, right?
Right.
So when we say manage our money, I want to talk about the traditional way that most people think of and that most of the apps that are out there and most of the advisors, they jump in and they start talking about how much should you be spending on food? How much should you be spending on housing? How much should you be spending on automobiles? And yeah, you do need to have some general ideas about those things. But all of these budgeting apps get really laser focused on all these specific spending categories. And what I do is I talk about like, yeah, you can do that. If you want to spend all your time trying to track exactly where every dollar's going in these different spending categories, or we can change our mindset and talk more about when are we spending our money instead of what are we spending it on. And what I mean by that is we can be spending today, or we can be putting aside money for the future to spend it later. But money is designed to be spent. Ultimately, that's what we want to do with it. That's why it exists. And so, how can we come up with a balance in our lives so that we're spending enough today to do the things we love without sacrificing our future and digging ourselves in a hole? And so instead of managing all these different spending categories, I want everyone, my hypothesis is that people would be better off simplifying things to what should I be spending today? What should I be spending in the future? How can I jam as much of the things I like in today and get rid of the things I'm spending on that I don't care about? And make sure and see the math and how it plays out for how I can be okay in the future at any given spending level today. So hopefully that answers the question. It's still technically you could call it like money management of some kind, but it's very different, I think, than the approach of most financial advisors and most recommendations.
Okay, and so then I want you to touch on people making these unrealistic goals. Can you talk on that a little bit? Because sometimes people don't have really an idea of what a realistic goal is. So can we talk about that a little bit concerning money?
Yeah, let's talk about goals for a second. One of the things that has come up in terms of goals is it is playing a game where you only win at the end. And that is sometimes a very defeating feeling. And sometimes even you get to the goal and then you say, well, what am I doing? Like now that I've got it, what do I do next? And really what we should be establishing are good habits and things that we're doing on a daily basis to be a financially fit person instead of trying to achieve a goal of a certain net worth or a goal of a certain house size. These
Mm-hmm.
things aren't necessarily bad, but we tend to postpone living and postpone enjoying what we're doing if we're always looking to these future goals when it very well is or very much is possible to have a sense of financial freedom today, a sense that
Yeah.
you're on track, a sense that you're going where you need to go. And that alone can be, if you want to call it the goal, like it's the habit is the goal. And putting things out in the future is just delaying your ability to appreciate your life, to enjoy where you're at. And you can do that a lot better if you just know you're on the right path.
That was pretty deep, JD. Maybe it wasn't deep to you because you know that, but it is so special to be able to enjoy your life now instead of putting it off to later. And so, yeah, what do you want to say?
I was
Did
just
you?
going to say I'm guilty person number one. When I read all these books when I was a kid, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Millionaire Next Door, all like the classics, right? And in my head, I said, one day I will be in a place where I'm financially free. That's my goal. Everything I did was for this future outcome. And I don't want to say that I haven't enjoyed my life because that would be a little not entirely true. But I
Mhm.
certainly have not had that feeling of well-being, of feeling like, yes, everything's good. I have financial freedom, even though I'm not at this point that I wanted to be at as a kid. And I think that that in some ways robs you out of the present enjoyment. And I feel like it influenced me. And I kind of want to help put out materials so that other people don't fall into that same trap.
Okay, so we have a listener that may be interested in this Olympus money method. What would be benefits for them to try your method?
Yes.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in it, again, I feel like it simplifies things for people who don't
Mhm.
want to spend a ton of time and energy trying to again manage all these different spending categories and be all in all these different
Mhm.
places. We'll probably get to it in a little bit, but the book has a companion that goes with it, which is an app that I've taught myself how to code and built. And the app allows you to see the full picture and it walks you through things step by step. And so the Olympus Money Method's designed to be easier. It's designed to bring in not just the science of money, but again, the science of well-being. And even when you get into the app, you'll see there are little like money meditations to help get your mind in the right spot. There's recommendations on how to do things to build better relationships. There's opportunities to express gratitude in simple ways that are designed to be these exercises to really build up a financially healthy identity and goes beyond just the typical, I want to be able to retire one day and I want to pay less in taxes. All that stuff's in there, but it goes beyond just the money to really a more complete feeling of well-being.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, because I know you mentioned your formula, science of money plus the science of well-being, I guess equals financial freedom or financial well-being.
Yeah, I
So,
call, oh, real quick, I call it financial well-being / true financial freedom. So those I use interchangeably. Sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
no, that's fine. Because I was going to ask you, how did you come up with that formula? And were you sitting down like thinking one day and like, hey, these two equal, if I put the science of money and the science of well-being, then I could actually be financially free or financially well. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, I think it stems probably from just recognizing that there's a lot of people who have plenty of money and figure that side of things out who aren't happy. And like,
That's true.
and
Yeah.
so I look at that and I said, well, that's not the equation, right? Like financial science of money. And I think I know the science of money inside and out. Again, a lot of schooling on it, a lot of practical experience, and knowing all these things and seeing people who have applied those principles in isolation does not lead to this feeling of like true wealth, true well-being. And back when the pandemic hit, I took this course through Yale University called The Science of Well-Being. And I went through all of that and I was like, wow, there's some fascinating stuff here. And because I had so much of this money science in my brain rattling around, I just naturally started thinking, how does this apply in the financial world? How does it fit in? And how do we infuse those things together? And it just kind of, because I was so familiar with the science of money side of it, it's just where my mind naturally took it. And then what came out, I feel like is a really powerful formula, a really powerful equation.
Well, I bet you we have so many people that have no idea what the science of money is. Can you give us a brief description of exactly what that is?
Yeah, so science of money, I'll kind of do a shotgun scatter approach first, and then we'll kind of reel it in a little bit. But science of money talks about things like where to invest your money to get the best returns. What do you do to pay less in taxes? What are the general guidelines for how much you should be saving, investing, spending, and the cut that goes to the government? It talks about strategies for getting out of debt. It talks about all of these types of things that, and again, you can go really deep into just the tax side alone. Our tax code is thousands of pages long, and all of that I incorporate in the science of money, how to invest and seeking alpha or doing all these different like stock market things. Like
Mhm.
that. There's entire courses, there are entire worlds dedicated to just investing
Mhm.
strategies and things like that. And so all of that I call science of money type stuff. But really
Okay.
it comes down to now that we're gonna like talk, like what do you really need to know? You need to know how much do I need to set aside for the future? Where do I put that money to grow it as effectively as possible and pay as little as tax? And then how do I live my life in a way that enjoys what I have and allows me to feel good about it? So
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now I like that
Mm-hmm.
statement. Yeah. How can we enjoy it now and enjoy our life? Because money has control over a lot of people.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
and
feel good about it.
Yeah.
one thing that I should probably confess is that while I tout this as a financial app and a financial book, the vision for me and what I'm trying to do with Olympus Money is I want money to be a tool that you can use to live your dream life. And I want you to be able to do the things you love doing, do more of the things that you love to do. And eventually in the app, I'm going to be introducing some features that help you do that a little bit more in context of what you can and should be doing given your financial situation. But really it's the hypothesis and the thing I'm trying to drive at is how do we live the best life we possibly can and use money as a tool to fuel that life.
I like that. And I got to ask him
Oh,
this.
yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Was there something that maybe happened in your life or something that you saw that made you come up with the Olympus money method?
I think that the biggest thing, I talk about this a little bit in the book, but just I took maybe a page from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, not necessarily in what he taught, but in what he experienced. In that book, he talks about seeing two different examples and kind of drawing the lessons learned from both. And so my dad was an accountant. He was a CPA. He leaned more on the side of, save for the future, be ready for tomorrow. And he didn't entirely ignore his present, but he was more focused on the future. And then I had my uncle who was more focused on the present. He was a salesperson, did awesome things all the time, wasn't entirely neglecting his future, but kind of was more focused on the present. And sadly, when I was a teenager, my dad got sick and passed away. And I saw the folly of kind of just always thinking about tomorrow, instead of recognizing the importance of focusing on the present too. And again, I think it all comes down to balance and kind of you want to be able to, you can't just, I'm not saying go do everything today and whatever
Right.
comes tomorrow comes. No, that's not right either. But that was a lesson I learned from watching both of those individuals that kind of sparked some of my philosophies on all this.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because that helps people to understand why you have a passion for this and why you really do care about helping people manage their money well. But in managing your money well, enjoy your today and not be so focused on tomorrow.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's good
to enjoy your today. And you're right. A lot of people don't do that. They'll save, and
then get sick and die, and you can't take any of it with you.
Yeah, and a lot of my friends, and again, people very close to me, they'll wear it as a badge of honor that they don't spend. And yeah, there are sometimes that works, but if you end up with a bunch of money later in life with a body that's not healthy enough to really use it, or you die early, like are you really good with your money? I'd argue that you're not being good with your money. You're just as bad as somebody who's overspending, if you're underspending. That's why I keep going back to the word balance. And I truly believe that that's the key to the whole thing. But nobody really knows without looking at the numbers whether they're in balance for their future and for their today. And that's one of the reasons I built the app, so that you can put in your information and find out if you're in balance and see what's going to happen in 30 years and understand the dynamics, because the human brain's not just going to sit there and know, well, the present value of money in 30 years with my current income rate, blah, blah, blah. You can't do it. Nobody can do it. So everyone walks around confused because they're either overspending or underspending and they don't know which. And to me, it was maddening to not have it all. To me, comes back to peace of mind. Can I spend comfortably today, understanding what's going to happen in the future and seeing it laid out in clear terms, so that I'm not worried, so that I'm not feeling fearful of doing the things that I love. So yeah, those are just some thoughts.
Wonderful.
Wow. So I heard you mention the app. If any of the listeners want to get the app, how would they go about getting the app? What would
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really easy. Right now, it's just available for iOS, but I coded it in a way that I can roll it out to Android and web fairly easily. I just don't, to be honest, I don't have an Android phone to test on. So I just haven't been able to test on it, but it's all coded and ready to go for Android. But for right now, as of today, you just go on the App Store, the iOS App Store, and type in Olympus space money. It'll pop right up. The other way you can do it is if you go to my website, www.olympusmoney.com. There's a little menu item for Get the App, and that has the link to download it as well.
That's amazing. Well, we got to ask him this one.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm hopping on now. So one of the things we heard about, all the formulas and how in the mindset, because a lot of it's mindset too.
Yeah.
Financial well-being is a part of that mindset. So let's talk about like bad debt. What do you consider bad debt?
Yeah. So bad debt to me, like the debt you don't want, is anything with an interest rate that's more than what you can get in the stock market. And so usually that's somewhere between 8 and 10%. And so if we're looking at things and you have credit card debt that's over that rate, then that's bad. You want to try to pay that down and pay that off as quickly as possible. if you have student loans, there's always an interesting question with student loans as to whether you should try to pay that down quickly or not. I'm an advocate of if it's less than, again, 8 to 10%, to just pay your minimum payments on debt. And one of the reasons for that that's counterintuitive and that a lot of people don't think about is debt actually gets devalued over time the same way that cash gets devalued over time. So most of us are familiar with the concept of if you have inflation and you have $100 in your bank account, over time, if you just let it sit there, the purchasing power of that $100 moves down to like $90 and then $80 and then $70. And a lot of us have been told that. But the truth about debt is that it's the same thing with debt. So if you're holding student loan debt of $10,000, the debt power, or again, I'm trying to think of what's the analogy of purchasing power, but really that debt's worth is not $10,000 in an inflationary period. It goes down to $9,500, then 9,000. And that's not again from you paying it down. That's just from inflation working its way against the debt there. And so I know there's a lot of other money experts who talk about like you just got to get out of debt as quickly as possible, pay off your mortgage, pay off your student loans. You guys probably know who I'm talking about. But I don't think that that is the most effective way to proceed if you truly do understand. Again, I'll use the term the science of money. If you understand all the variables at play, I think it's pay down credit card debt, get rid of that. That is true. But if you have a mortgage, I wouldn't recommend trying to pay that down faster than you need to. Student loans, same thing. So yeah.
I know that typical question for you, so I know I can feel it.
Well, I got a question I want to ask you about. What are your thoughts about parents working really hard and doing without some of them their own things today so that they can leave a legacy for their children?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll be honest, I haven't thought as much on that topic. So I'll give you some off the cuff thoughts. In my mind, there's nothing more important than the next generation. And so for parents who want to help that next generation along, I applaud it. I think it's a wonderful goal. I think if you have the means and ability to do it, I think it's awesome. I don't think that parents should feel an obligation to. Like if you've earned it and you want to spend it, I think you have every right to do that. If you've raised kids who can be on their own, awesome. But I'll also kind of point out the thing that nobody wants to say, which is enough parents help their children nowadays that it's kind of the standard. And if you don't, then your kids can be a little bit behind. And that I don't know if it's fair or not fair. So I think I'm talking probably out of both sides of my mouth with the answers that I'm giving, but I think it's a wonderful thing for parents if they have the desire to do it and want to work hard to do it. Awesome. The last thing I'll say is I don't know that it's the best thing to just perpetually get into a cycle of I left everything to my children and they work really hard so that they can leave a bunch to their children so they can work really hard and leave. Like where in the chain is somebody enjoying their money? Like where does that happen? At some point, I go back to the word balance. You need to have a balance there.
Okay. And then this is a question. If you don't want to answer it, then you can just plead the fifth. But I think you'll answer it. Can you tell the audience how the Olympus Money Method has helped you in your life?
Yeah, I mean, personally, it's helped me get to a point where I'm at in a work optional stage right now. So everything that I've listed in the book, especially on the science of money, some of the science of well-being things came to me later in life, and I've kind of worked them into my life now. But the science of money stuff are things that I've been applying since I was a 20-year-old in college, learning about all this stuff. And so now I'm fortunate enough that for the most part, I'm kind of working because I want to. I'm very passionate about helping people in this specific area. I'm sure I'll need to make money again someday, somehow, but I own some rental properties. I'm not like living high on the hog. I don't want your listeners to be throwing tomatoes at me saying, what'd you bring that bozo on who thinks he's so cool and so whatever. I'm no Elon Musk, but I was in a bad situation with the last job I was in where the CEO wasn't treating people the way that I thought he should treat people. And I said, I'm not gonna work here. So I was able to walk away from a bad situation. And it's because I had followed the exact steps that I've laid out in the book. And that was a really nice thing to be able to do. Because we all there's nothing worse than being in a situation where you have a boss who's a tyrant or you're doing stuff that you don't really enjoy doing at all and you feel trapped. That's no way to live. And I want to help more people get to the spot where they don't have to live like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was a great answer.
Yes, and I
Thank you for answering it too.
I like the work option. See, I think anybody who's listening, everybody like the option to work and not have to work, because at that point you can say, I feel financially free.
That definitely is what financial freedom is for me. Having the option to work. It may not be, what somebody else might want, but living the life you're living, making your own decisions and clocking out when you want to, I would say that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
All right. Well, so how many, we're going to close this out after a while, but how many books have you written so far?
So this is the first book that I've published. I've spent a considerable amount of time writing on other topics that one day I'll get around to publishing some of these other more like philosophical thoughts. But some of my philosophical thoughts kind of bleed into the book a little bit. The money book that was published. I liked writing a book. I'll confess, I wanted to write a really good one, so I hired a writing coach to help me through it a little bit. And they helped a ton to make sure that I wrote a book that people would actually want to read. I put it up on Amazon. My goal is to sell the book through my own website, but I was like, people trust the reviews on Amazon. They're not going to trust other things quite as much. So I've had 21 reviews come through Amazon of people that I don't know. Every single one of them has been a 5-star review. Some of the things that they talk about, they say, this is eye-opening, this is revolutionary, this is stuff that you haven't heard anywhere else. And so I do believe, our time is our most valuable asset, and to read a book takes that time. But I tried to pack a lot of information into something you can read pretty quickly. But the people who have read it have really raved about it, and I think that any of your listeners who want to use some of their precious time to check it out would be handsomely rewarded for doing it.
And I can attest, for sure, you definitely have 5-star reviews on that book.
Yeah, we both looked, and like I said, read through it. And you also have it on Kindle as well. I think I remember seeing it listed on Kindle too. So if you don't necessarily want to read, you can put on Kindle and let the Kindle read to you. So
So we encourage our listeners to please get your book, check your book out. Some people, they want to just do budgets, but then there are other people who may not want to live by a budget, but they want to be able to, to plan. So if that's that person, you need to look Mr. JD up.
Yes. Okay. Anything?
You know what I would like for you to do?
Yeah.
Can you give some words of wisdom or advice to our listeners regarding money?
Oh boy, something new from what I've said. I'll quote. I'll quote, but not the exact words of Warren Buffett, which is that wealth is defined ultimately by the number of people who love you. And love is something you can't buy. It's our relationship that matter most. And money should and can be used as a tool to build those relationships. But at the end of the day, measure your life by the number of people who love you, and live a life that makes people want to love you and allows you to love others.
Well, that sure was deeper than I expected. You almost got tears in my eyes. That was very, very nice. Thank you for sharing that, JD.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Mr. JD, thank you for joining us on Bartelle's Money Talk. We really appreciate this conversation that we had with you about Olympus Money Method. And so we really thank you for your time, and we look forward to speaking with you again on Bartelle's Money Talk.
And again, he needs me here to supervise him.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, he does. Yes, all the time.
Yeah,
I
so
was like, tag team? I don't know if I can take 2-on-1. I'm not used to those
oh,
odds, you know?
we got you, but
Yeah.
we will not let you leave here without telling people how they can find you, how they can connect with you, because this message is powerful. So give us that information.
Yeah, the easiest way to find my materials is on my website, www.olympusmoney.com. You can send me an email at JD, just the two letters JD at olympusmoney.com. And I think between those two things, you'll find the book, you'll find the app, you'll find some of the other services that we provide. But the last little plug is I'm still pretty early in building this app, and I'm taking feedback from everyone I know right now, and I'd love your listeners if they want to jump in and they say, "Hey JD, this looks great, but I'd really love it if it did X, Y, and Z." I need to hear that feedback, and so there's a place to provide feedback in the app, in the settings, and like I'm here to serve the people who want to use this as a tool, and just like hit me up, let me know what you want it to do. And from here on out, I'm an order taker and just want to build something that helps people achieve their goals.
Oh, that was great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, JD, for joining the Bartelle's Money Talk. We appreciate all the information you provided, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Okay. Bye.